What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I got a quick video for you guys today. I know I haven't pushed out any content in about a week. Guys, I got 3 wisdom teeth taken out, so you guys had to bear with me. I was out here looking like Kanye in the Through the Wire video, talking crazy. But your boy is back. So yeah, thanks for the guys that reached out, or the people that reached out. Once I put on my page that I had surgery on my mouth, and that I was going to be coming with some content later in the week. Well, guess what? Here we are with the content later in the week. But before we get too deep into this video, you already know what I'm going to say. Be sure to comment, be sure to like, be sure to subscribe. On the road to 3,000 subscribers, and I can't do it without your help. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification button so you're not missing anything that Bleeding B&G puts out. Because guess what? I'm not going to leave you for a week again. I don't plan on getting wisdom tooth surgery anymore. I got all 3 of the ones that I got in my mouth. Pause. No diddy. I got all 3 of them taken out. So we shouldn't have to go through that ever again. But there was some news that broke, while we were in the mend in recovery, while we were holding ice packs up to our jaws. And that was that one of the top 5 defensive players in the NFL, a former NFL Defensive Player of the Year, defensive end Myles Garrett from the Cleveland Browns, actually requested a trade. I believe that was on Monday. Today is Wednesday, February the 5th, 2025. And, Myles Garrett he actually made his way down to Radio Row as a part of Super Bowl weekend. Do we still call it Radio Row? I might as well call it Media Row, because podcasts are dominating this space. Who are we kidding? And Bleeding B&G needs to be your #1 podcast that you tap into for anything Washington Commanders. I'm just saying. But Myles Garrett made his way down to New Orleans on Radio Row, and he had quite a couple of interesting things to say about our very own Washington Commanders. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at what he said about the Commanders today, because it looked like he might be dating us on an open market. We might be openly dating Myles Garrett right now, trying to court his services. And his services, I would love to court. No diddy. But in terms of the football, it don't get much better than Myles Garrett on the defensive side of the ball. But let's check out what Myles Garrett said. But before we, check out those videos, we're going to look at, I actually retweeted them on my X page. So if you're not following us on social media, I don't know what you're doing, but go ahead and follow at Bleeding B&G right there, BLEEDIN B&G. And yeah, let's check and see what Myles Garrett had to say in regards to our beloved Washington Commanders today. So there's 2 videos that I'm actually going to play for you guys today. One is from Sports Illustrated. I'm not sure who the guy that was interviewing Myles Garrett for Sports Illustrated. And then another video came from ESPN with Mina Kim. So we're going to actually check out both of those. Give me 1 second.
I thought about the squads that could use a guy like me. I think the Commanders is definitely amongst one of them. Mm-hmm. I think they need a pass rusher. I think that's something that they dearly missed down there in the playoffs and some of the big games. And I feel like I could fill that role, but that's a role that multiple teams need. And I feel like not only a pass rusher, but I think I'm the best defensive player in the game, and 100%. I feel like that's invaluable in itself.
Sir, you might very well. Hey, Myles Garrett not tooting his own horn. He might very well be the best pass rusher in the game, but let me actually find the other clip to start off, that interview, because Buddy from Sports Illustrated, I'm sorry if I don't have your name, but he was out here doing the Lord's work for our beloved Commanders. And let me show you what I was talking about once we get to it. Give me 1 second. Shout out to my man Big Doug that actually had one of the first reposts about this.
Have you thought about the squads that you want to play? Thought about it. Would you like to go to the Commanders?
Look at my man.
Thought about it. Have you thought about the squads that you want to play?
I think they need a pass rusher. I think that's something that they dearly missed down there in the playoffs and some of the big games. And I feel like I could fill that role, but that's a role that multiple teams need. And I feel like not only a pass rusher, but I think I'm the best defensive player in the game, and I feel like that's invaluable in itself.
Shout out to my man from Sports Illustrated over there doing the Lord's work. So you actually see why Myles Garrett brought up the Commanders in the initial clip is that, you know, the guy from Sports Illustrated actually name dropped the Commanders. So guess what? Sports Illustrated, go ahead and give my guy a raise because he's over there doing the Lord's work for the Burgundy and Gold. Sorry that I didn't get your name, man, but I appreciate you. I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart because I don't know if you guys saw it. I don't know if I might be reading too deep into things, but we all saw that little glisten in Myles Garrett's eye once the Commander's name was brought up by my guy. This was actually not the only clip or not the only news segment that Myles Garrett did regarding our Washington Commanders today. He actually talked about our beloved, our franchise savior, JD5.
That quarterback has been an issue in Cleveland. When you look ahead again to like potential spots, is that something that's important to you, playing a team where the quarterback is set and ready to compete?
Absolutely. Any playoff team or any, championship team, they're going to have a quarterback, a good quarterback. And, you've seen some game managers, go out there with a great defense and win it all. But, if you want to consistently get to the top, you got to have a really good quarterback.
There's the obvious,
look at me.
In the Super Bowl, you're Josh Allen, you're Lamar, they're obviously not going to treat you the Ravens. But what about a youngster like Jalen?
Look at me, over there doing the Lord's work.
Could that appeal to you at all?
Absolutely. I mean, he looked great. I mean, he looked great when we played him, but he really showed us behind when he was in the playoffs, and he's really done it and been very composed throughout the entire season. He can only continue to flourish if he keeps his head down and continues to work.
So that video tells you that Myles Garrett kept his eye over here on the Burgundy and Gold, especially Jaden Daniels. And honestly, if I'm being quite transparent and quite honest with my analysis, while I do think that Myles Garrett is interested in the Washington Commanders, I think he's interested in just going to a contender. In his newsletter or, the graphic that he dropped when he announced that he was requesting a trade, one of the lines that he said is the goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It was to compete for championships. So I think that his biggest thing that he's looking for is going to a contender. And the Washington Commanders are a contender. We just played in an NFC Championship game 10 days ago, no matter if we got belt to ass put to us by the Philadelphia Eagles. But a guy like Myles Garrett can help get us over the top and have us competing in, the game that the Eagles and the Chiefs are prepping for this weekend. We saw in that NFC Championship game that we were dominated in the trenches. And not only is Myles Garrett an elite pass rusher, I think PFF had him ranked as the 11th best defensive end against the run this season. So while pass rushing is his forte, and he's racked up 15 plus sack seasons, near 20 sack seasons and things of that nature, this is a guy that's a well-rounded defensive end and somebody that we absolutely need because I think edge might honestly be our biggest weakness, our biggest need going into the 2025 offseason. I know people have had their skepticisms about the Alabama wall with the defensive tackles in Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen. And while I don't think that they're playing up to their $20 million a year potential, respectively, each of them, I think of having a edge presence like Myles Garrett can help their play. And that's if Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne are on this roster next year. While I do think that Daron Payne is going to be on this roster because we would have to take a significant cap hit if we traded him or things of that nature, a guy like Jonathan Allen, who has no money left guaranteed on his deal, may not be with the Washington Commanders in the 2025 season. I'm not saying that I'm hoping. I'm just putting it out there. And he may be involved in this trade package that we need to acquire Myles Garrett. Because I'm going to be the first one to let you know, we're going to have to give up the house and the moon for Myles Garrett. I'm not saying that we need to leverage our future, but we need to take advantage of this, window where Jaden Daniels is on his rookie contract by loading up on impact players. And this is the guy that will be going into his age 29 season. So he's still in the midst of his prime. But with physical freaks like Myles Garrett, who's built like a goddamn Decepticon, who's built like a goddamn Transformer, these are guys that defy the odds. These aren't your normal athletes. These are guys that are going to, like I said, the age standard doesn't really apply to these guys because he's a fucking physical freak of nature. And if you guys aren't familiar with Myles Garrett, he said in that clip that he thinks he's the best defensive player in the game, and he might have a claim to that. If he's not number one, he's within the top 3 or 4. And this is a guy that has been giving you constant productivity since he came into the league in 2017. And while, you know, he might not have the notoriety of it playing in a small, but I mean, Cleveland has a decent NFL following, but it is a smaller market compared to the DMV. And this is a guy in Myles Garrett who can actually ascend into superstardom later in his career with the Washington Commanders. Because we've seen over the course of this past season, like Jayden Daniels done woke up a sleeping giant. Not only is this, I think, the 5th or the 6th largest media market in the entire NFL, but the Washington Commanders fan base is back, and they're back in full force. And the NFL is better when your Washington Commanders are good. So, you know, it's just as simple as that. Like, I'm just being honest. If you're a Philly fan and a Cowboy fan watching this video, I'm just being honest. Like, we're one of the pillar organizations in the NFL. Now, looking at some trade packages that might be needed to acquire Myles Garrett. Like I said, you're gonna have to give up a lot. While I don't necessarily want to leverage the future or damage the future by any means, you're going to have to give up something for Myles Garrett, and especially if you're going to be bringing him in this offseason. That 29th pick that we got in the first round, it's as good as gone if we're going to be acquiring Myles Garrett. Now, I don't think that I don't think that the market is actually calling for like a Khalil Mack in 2018 type trade Bears gave up, I think, 3 first-rounders to the Oakland Raiders to get Khalil Mack. I don't think that the market is calling for that. I don't think that, you know, the trades since that trade almost 7 years ago have been as crazy. But you're going to have to give up something. So I think something like this 29th pick this year, maybe the number 2 pick this year in the 2nd round, and a young player like Johnny Newton or Brandon Coleman would do it, to be quite honest, because at this point, the Cleveland Browns are losing leverage every day when Myles is out here just openly busting it open for contending teams, which I ain't mad at him. Like, he's tired of suffering in Cleveland, and Cleveland, they wrote their death wish when they signed Deshaun Watson to the worst contract in league history. You see, Mina Kimes and Myles Garrett were talking about the importance of the quarterback position in contending in the NFL. Well, Cleveland ain't got nobody. They ain't got no quarterback. You know, Deshaun Watson doesn't want to play football anymore. He's likely to be out for the 2025 season, and Myles Garrett just simply doesn't want to sit through that shit. I know a couple of people were talking about, oh, this might be a contract play and things of that nature. I don't think that that's necessarily the case, because if that was a contract play, I don't think that Myles would be as public about going to, you know, a contending team and wanting to win. I think this is a guy, like I said, he's a freak of nature. And when you have a guy of this standard, of this pedigree, as an athlete, winning is important to them. Winning is super important to him. And while I don't necessarily love how public he is going about this, because I might have saw a clip of him flirting with the Eagles or being asked about the Eagles and speaking on like he doesn't mind going to the Eagles either. It wasn't as glowingly as he talked about our beloved Washington Commanders in the 2 clips that we saw today. So let me know how you feel about potentially bringing in Myles Garrett. Would you do whatever it takes? Do you want to leverage the future? Because honestly, if we bring in Myles Garrett, he'll be the best defensive player that we've had since Sean Taylor in about 20 years. Yes, even better than London Fletcher, even though London Fletcher does belong into the Hall of Fame. But Myles Garrett is the type of guy that takes you from the NFC Championship to, you know, the Super Bowl. I know we got a lot of holes. I get that, and I understand that. But when you got an elite quarterback and an elite pass rusher, you can compete in any game. You can compete in any game. And not only is that guy an elite pass rusher, but he contributes in the run game as well. And he can potentially unlock Daron Payne and John Allen if he's here. Like I said, John Allen, I don't know if the Cleveland Browns are going to want a guy like John Allen. He came in the same class as Myles Garrett in 2017. I think he might be a little older than Myles Garrett, like a year older than Myles Garrett. So I don't know if they necessarily want to get older at the defensive tackle position. And I honestly think they might have had some defensive tackles that outplayed Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne this past season. But I do think a package of like a first, a second, a first this year, 29, absolutely. A second this year or another first, because you're hoping that first, we got the low, we're giving up 29. That's a super low, almost a second round pick this year. And you're hoping that next year you're picking the first round to be in the 30s because you'd be playing in that Super Bowl Sunday game. In Super Bowl Sunday 2026. So you're not really leveraging. It's not like the level or the pedigree of the first round picks that we've been used to, being such a shitty franchise, even if we didn't capitalize. It's not like it's a top of the first round, top half of the first round draft pick that you'll be giving up. Your power ways with two lesser late draft picks. But I do think that maybe the first round of this year, the second round of this year, and a young player like a Johnny Newton or Brandon Coleman gets it done, because as I mentioned before, the Cleveland Browns are losing leverage every day when Myles Garrett is openly saying that he does not want to be there anymore. So let me know what you think about Myles Garrett to DC. I'm super excited because it seems like Myles wants to be here. And not only here, it seems like he wants to be a contender, but it wants to be with a contender. But it seems like he knows that our Washington Commanders are going to be contended for years to come. So why not strike when the iron's hot and take advantage of Jaden Daniels' window while he's on this rookie contract? We got, I know the saying out there is that we have $100 million in cap space, but we got to sign some of our guys. So I think that we're going to have about $70 million left in cap space after we bring our guys in. And if Myles Garrett is looking for a restructured deal, hey, I wouldn't mind giving it to him, because like I said, you're giving it up for one of the top 5 defenders in the NFL. And that's something we can't say that we've posted on that side of the ball since Sean Taylor. So yeah, let me know what you think about Myles Garrett. What would you give up for Myles Garrett? How do you feel about the news? How do you feel about the clips that we watched today? And do you think that there's a realistic chance that Myles Garrett is donning that burgundy and gold or that crimson red and gold, whatever we wearing right now? I ain't even about to get into the uniform and the name, because that's a whole nother enigma. But thank you guys for checking in. Let me know what you think about it in the comments, and I'll be checking in on y'all on the flip side. Peace.